Hello, in this video we're going to go through learning target 134, which is about writing and graphing inequalities based on a context. So the first thing you're going to need to be able to do is to be able to pick out keywords for inequalities. So I want you to take like a minute and brainstorm as many as you can of keywords that mean these inequalities. So like less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to are obviously the basic phrases, but see if you can take a minute and think of any other ones. And then when you unpause it to come back, I'll have a bigger list on my paper. All right, so I want you to pause it here and get all my phrases down as well. So you have kind of like a giant bank that you can go back and look at as we do story problems. Unpause it when you're done writing. So now we're gonna do an example. And so this example says, Mrs. Barnett is ordering senior portraits of her son to send to their relatives. A medium photo costs $14 and a large photo costs $42. She wants to spend less than $220 in total. Write an inequality to represent the scenario. Use the following variables and then graph. So it tells us that X is the number of medium photos and Y is the number of large. So the first thing I want to do is I want to write an inequality. And I typically, after I read this once, I go back and I underline important information. So a medium photo is 14. Large photo is 42. She wants to spend less than $220 in total. And then I always start at the end of the inequality, like whatever the total is, I always start there and I put that at the end. So it says, I want to spend less than $220 in total. Less than tells us that we should use a less than symbol. That one is pretty easy. So the end of my inequality is going to say less than 220. If she said something like, I want to spend a maximum of $220, you would want to use less than or equal to. But this strictly says less than, so we're going to use a less than symbol. So then a medium photo is 14, which is X. So I have 14X. And since we're finding the total cost of something, we're going to add our large photos as well, which is 42Y. So we have our inequality written, and now we are going to graph that inequality. And so you have two choices for how to graph this because it's in standard form. You can either plug in 0 for each one to see where your intercepts are, or you can convert this to slope-intercept form. So before I label any of this, I'm going to go ahead and figure out what my intercepts are so I know what the scale of this should be. So I'm going to do the zeros method. That part cancels, we divide to get that y is something. $5.2. Then I'm going to repeat that process, but I'm going to plug in 0 for y this time. That cancels, we divide by 14. And we get 15.7. So I know my x-axis, I need to at least get to 15, and my y-axis, I need to at least get to 5. So just to keep everything the same, I'm going to count by 2s for everything. I'm not quite sure why this printed weird, but there should, in theory, be a line right here as well. So I'm just going to draw that in. And so my x-axis is the medium photos, so I'm going to write medium photos down here to label it. That means my y-axis is large photos. And I can title this like cost of senior photos. So now I'm going to count by 2s. 2, 4. And then these are 2s as well. I'm just not going to label them to save time. So now my x-intercept is at 15.7. So 15 is like right in between, and I'm going to put that as close as I can to 15 because 15.7 is pretty close to 15. I guess I should probably put it a little bit further. These are just counting by ones. Okay, I moved it a little closer to 16. Ignore that little dot. So then my y-intercept is 5.2. So again, I'm counting by 2s. So 2, 4, 6. So 5 is right in between 4 and 6. And then 5.2 is pretty close to 5. And now before I connect, I want to see if it's a dashed or solid line. So this should be a dashed line, and I'm going to connect those. And then if it is in standard form, you can't just shade above or below. You have to plug in a point. So I'm going to plug in 0, 0, because I think that's the easiest point to plug in. And I get 0 is less than 220, which is true. So I want to shade toward that 0, 0 point, so below this. And basically what that means in this context is that any combination that's in a shaded area is something that the mom could afford. So you could get 6 medium photos and 2 large photos. That's in the shaded area. Or you could get like 12 medium photos and 0 large photos. Or you could get 5, or I guess 4 large photos and 0 medium. So anywhere in the shaded area is something that the mom wants to spend on, and then anything above it is something that's too expensive. So like 20 medium photos and 20 large photos would be out of the price range of what they wanted to spend.